Thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. It is always a joy. Before I begin, I need water. Mine is on the right, I'm assured. Sometimes when I read ancient scriptures and myths, they call to me to come and take a second look at them. It's almost like they're talking to me. Come, look again, revisit me. And the Bible story about the two sisters, Mary and Martha, that are found in the Gospel of Luke, it's always called to me, look at this again. Look beyond what everybody says it means. There's something else there. Historically, the simplistic interpretation has always bothered me. Now, this is Mary and Martha. Don't get this Mary confused with Mary of Magdala. This is a different Mary. There's lots of Marys in the New Testament, but you get to kind of get them straight after a while. But let me read you the story as it appears in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. And it came to pass, while they were journeying, Jesus entered into a village, and a woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister whose name was Mary, and she came and sat at the feet of our Lord and listened to his words. But Martha was busy with many household cares, and she came and said to him, My Lord, do you not seem to care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me. Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and excited about many things, but one thing is more important, and Mary has chosen the good portion for herself, which shall not be taken away from her. So the simple explanation to these verses is that Martha was distracted by many things and she got it wrong. Mary sat at the Master's feet and listened, and she got it right. You might begin to see why I have a problem here. So I did revisit this story. I've revisited this story many times. And as an introduction to my reinterpretation, I'd like to take you to an early morning yoga class, and all will be made clear. Walking into this early morning yoga class, the first thing the instructor says is, okay, we're going to sit and we're going to just breathe. Okay, I can do this. But I sigh and I say, come on, the day's waiting, there's things to do, there's places to go, people to see. Wait a minute, I can breathe. So we're breathing, and let's see, I have to be at the office by 9, and having lunch with my sister, and oh yes, breathing. Okay, breathing. You wouldn't think breathing would be quite so difficult. But at the risk of stating the obvious, this part of the early morning yoga class does not come naturally to me. I absolutely adore anything having to do with the spiritual. I just don't like sitting still for very long, and especially first thing in the morning. The morning is when I get my best work done. And I've always struggled with this Bible story about two sisters, where Jesus praises one for sitting quietly at his feet and tells the other that she's gotten it wrong by being busy. Now let me tell you, Mary would be awesome in this yoga class. But let's leave the yoga class for a bit and go back and picture this scene as it may have happened 2,000 years ago. Jesus and his entourage have come for dinner. We don't know whether it's 3 people or 30 people. We have no idea. And we have Martha running around the house, organizing everything, getting everything ready, washing feet, getting the water out, getting the food out, helping to organize the servants. She's busy, busy, busy. And she's going to make it all happen just exactly how she wants, because somebody has to do it, and Mary is no help at all. So first of all, in order for some people to sit around being still and having deep thoughts, I guarantee you there's always people in the background that are working to make it so. People in the kitchen, people in the sound booth, people in the nursery. There's always people in the background making it possible so that we can sit here in stillness and be. So right in the middle of a worshiping community like this, it takes busy people to make it happen. So I would imagine about this time, each of us is reflecting on whether we are a Mary or a Martha. Are you Mary, sitting quietly, listening, and happy to do so? Or are you Martha, making it all possible? I have to tell you, I'm a Martha. If I had been there that day, I would have been running around, cooking, cleaning, picking up, making sure everybody was comfortable. I don't like to sit still for too long. And if there is a hospitality job to do, let me tell you, it's just this uncontrollable urge to get up and do it. You know, last night my sister had a 50th birthday party, and we're all sitting around the table enjoying a wonderful conversation. And pretty soon I'm up picking up the dishes, washing them, and they're yelling at me, "Come and sit back down." Yeah, one more pot. So I would like to suggest that we put away the old simplistic interpretation of Martha from the gospel story that goes like this. Martha was more interested in doing housework than listening to Jesus. I feel like I know Martha, and she absolutely would have been following the conversation, keeping track of it, even as she went about and did what she felt she needed to do. Martha was a multitasker. And as an excellent multitasker, Martha probably would have found Mary more than a little bit annoying, sitting there, just listening when there is so much to do. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love to have the opportunity to sit at the Master's feet and listen. But soon, I know, I would be up, picking up dishes, cleaning them, fixing food, washing feet, whatever I can do to make people comfortable. That's just who I am. And Martha would have been accustomed to the disciples just sitting and listening and waiting to be fed. The disciples were devoted and spiritual and interested in every word, while someone else brought them food and drink. Yes, Martha was accustomed to her role in life at that time, and it meant taking care of her family and her guests. And I can almost hear Martha say to her sister Mary, "Mary, come on, please, help me. We can listen while we work." To which Jesus would have replied, "Martha, Martha, you are distracted by many things." Distracted? If that were me, I would like to say, "Oh, please don't call me distracted. I am the only one with any focus here. I'm making this party possible. Everyone but me has been sitting around just listening to you talk for hours. Can't we go and do something? Isn't it time for your next healing miracle? Your next lecture on world peace? I mean, please, can't we get on with changing the world already?" And it saddens me to be called distracted. Distracted? Me? Oh, heavens. But Jesus did call her distracted, and it is preserved in Scripture. And we have struggled, especially women, have struggled with this passage for 2,000 years. So what was Martha distracted by? Well, along with her own work ethic, perhaps Martha was distracted by something bigger and more complicated, something so much a part of the life that she lived, the air that she breathed, that she just couldn't see it, and we don't really see it at first glance some 2,000 years later. Perhaps Martha was distracted by gender and gender roles, because gender roles play a very important part in these verses. By sitting at Jesus' feet and listening, Mary was breaking one of the primary gender rules of the culture. Women were not allowed to sit at the feet of the Master. Women were supposed to be quietly serving the food. Men got to sit and have deep thoughts, and it was not a privilege usually allowed to the women. So maybe Martha was distracted, upset even, by her sisters breaking the social code of the day. Mary was acting like a man. She was taking male privilege. Society did not and would not give her as a woman. And not only that, Jesus was commending her for it. Taking it even further, Jesus made it clear to all those present that day that women could be disciples also. He said, Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken from her. In essence, he was saying, this will not be taken from Mary, not by her sister, not by her family, not by the male disciples, not by the society that says women can do only one kind of work, and not by religions that say only men can be spiritual leaders. That will not be taken from her. Jesus was asking Martha to not condemn her sister. He asked her instead to look at Mary's courage. In sitting and listening, she is taking herself seriously as a spiritual student. And it must have taken tremendous courage for her to do that. But let me take you back a minute to my yoga class. The final pose in this particular yoga class is called Shavasana, which means corpse pose. And you literally lie there like a corpse for as long as the instructor sees fit. And in this society, in this culture, that pose is some of the hardest work that people do in yoga, because in our culture, it is hard to slow down and just be. Our culture that says, just go do it. Be. No, I mean, being is good for holy people, but the rest of us need to go and we need to do. So, Martha was being busy, 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 and we hear praises in our culture to be busy, busy. And when I hear this story of Mary and Martha, I immediately want to defend Martha. Defend being busy. After all, if I don't do it, it won't get done, sort of comment. And when I hear myself say this, or even think it, it implies that these two states of busy and quiet are polar opposites, with no relationship whatsoever, when actually I believe that is just not true. Now, in every spiritual tradition, there exists some sort of tension between action and stillness, some tension between doing God's will and listening for God's voice, some tension between the exterior physical life and the interior life of spirit, tension between doing and being. And this inner struggle between being and doing, it shows up sometimes when I ask people how they are. And they say, busy, 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 I'm so busy, I just don't know how I'm going to get everything done. And it saddens me to hear people who live really lovely, wonderful lives to be so busy, busy, busy. And when I hear those words, especially when they come out of my own mouth, I cringe. You can laugh at it, it's funny. So in reality, excuse me, in reality, Mary in her stillness is not being passive. She is being strong. By sitting at the Master's feet, she is actually standing up for her spiritual path to those individuals who would condemn her. In seemingly doing nothing, she is actually doing something very important. In sitting still to listen, she is saying, I matter, I count, I am a whole person. And Martha also is being strong. She is following her inner guidance in her need to be of service to others. You might be wondering at this point where I'm going. But in order to revisit and reinterpret these ancient stories, I find that I have to pick them apart first and look at all the little pieces. And what do all those little pieces tell me? Put it all back together, and then hopefully there is an aha moment there. I believe that Mary and Martha are not two different people. One getting it right and one getting it wrong. I believe that Mary and Martha represent two halves of the human spirit, two parts that complement each other, two parts that when put together make up the whole. These two parts of our human spirit are the will to do and the will to be. And they do, in our culture, tend to fight with one another. And this fight, this tension is not happening out there. It's happening in here. We're fighting and we're striving to find the balance between being and doing. And in this striving to find a balance, this middle point between being and doing, I suggest that we take a couple of steps back and look at it from a broader perspective. Because after all, that's what's taking part when we revisit something and we look at all the pieces and we put them back together, we get a broader perspective. So from this broader perspective, we begin to see that these two sides are really two very integral and connected parts of life. We can't have one without the other, being and doing. Each is necessary, each is crucial. It's crucial to our own spiritual journey. And we must learn to embrace both Mary and Martha, both being and doing. These two parts of the whole move within us and create a tension that moves us forward. This seeking of balance, this middle way, is where we become effective in living conscious lives. This is the yin-yang, the two sides, the two halves, each half containing the seed of the other, but more importantly, always in motion. We see this symbol and it is stagnant, but what we have to remember is that the reality of this symbol is that it is always, always in motion. This is where two opposites exist in harmony, always seeking, always moving, and always in this balanced state of harmony. They are seemingly opposite, but really they are complementary. They are interconnected, and they give rise to each other as they move. So then, this is what this passage teaches me, and I'm much more happy with this interpretation. It teaches me the importance of doing and being, that we are to strive to live in the balance between the two. Neither one is wrong, neither one is right. They exist together, hopefully in a harmonious balance within each of our lives. No, I don't believe that Martha got it wrong and Mary got it right. I believe that this passage is a perfect example in how it teaches us to live a balanced life, a conscious life between being and doing, and the movement that it creates in our life, living in that harmony. Can you feel that movement in your life? And so it is. Namaste.